Hi, my name is Brandon Boltis, and the topic of this video is going to be COVID and what are the most important ramifications that we're going to be seeing years down the line because of what the coronavirus did to the globe, specifically the U.S., but also everyone, specifically governments around the world, and what COVID did to those governments and what that's going to leave the vestiges of that over time. Like, what are the vestiges going to be? What is it going to leave behind? What are the remnants of the government increase in scope that we're going to be seeing 10 years from now or even a century from now? Really, I mean, this is the defining thing for the 21st century. I mean, one of them most certainly. So that's the topic of today's video: COVID, and what my thoughts are on if it's on the effect that we're going to leave, the government wise. Also, I mean, we may do a little bit of some other stuff. I have some other stuff written down here, but specifically the government size and our usual stuff that we usually go over. So without saying anything else, I'm Brandon Baltus. This is the Politics to Perils Descent show. So here we go. It's the most consequential global event in the last 10 years. I think so. COVID. That's what I think, and the reason is actually primarily because of it acting as a justification for governments to increase their scope. Okay, and why is that bad? Why? Well, let's prove that the government actually increased their scope. And this is the U.S. government specifically, as I said, not exclusively, but we're kind of focusing on the U.S. government for sure. So the U.S. led by example. The U.S. led by example. When the virus started, we basically in 2020, when the year that the virus basically started in the U.S., right, started spreading in the U.S., we basically spent. According to USgovernmentspending.com, right? Remember, these sources can be wrong. Fact check me, right? Just comment down if there's some incorrect information. But to my understanding, right, you're looking at 46.9% of total GDP in 2020. That's the federal government spending. Our percentage was 46.9% of our GDP total in 2020. That's how much the federal government spent. 46.9% of our total GDP in that year. Okay, so all right, what does that matter, Brandon? I don't know what to compare that to. Here's what you compare it to. Of the last 20 years, or 19 technically, right? Only once has the spending eclipsed 40%. We're now, 2020 was 46.9. Only one other time in the previous 19 years had it gone past 40. That gives you an idea. And the GDP wasn't that bad. For 2020, the GDP was only slightly off what it would have been, what it was the year before. What 2019 was, if I remember correctly. It's very, if not exactly that, very, it's not like it's, every year's like this, and then it just boom. No, it's pretty similar to what it is. So what I'm saying, GDP is not screwing up the point that I'm trying to make. The GDP output in 2020, that's not screwing it up at all. The point is still perfectly valid. So there you go. There's your first federal government. It's spending a lot of money. And then we've got the health spending, the health budget, right? So in 2019. This is according to the government. Itself. Okay, this is according to a .gov of the U.S., of course, $523 billion in 2019, and this is health spending in the health sector, health field, skyrocketed. It doubled. It more than doubled, actually. Okay, so you went from $523 billion in 2019 to $1.26 trillion in 2020. Say so, $500 billion roughly to $1.25 trillion. All right. You can see why government spending the government size has probably increased a lot because the spending has increased a huge amount. When the government spends a lot of money, you need people to effectuate that money, right? If you're going to pay for vaccines, that doesn't just mean you have to it doesn't just mean you have to come up with the money. That means you have to hire people to use that money to freaking get the vaccines out there and ship them and produce them and develop them. Pfizer and Moderna did it largely because the government got getting out of the way. We're going to talk about that pretty soon here. It's very actually, let's just do it now. Ironically, the vaccines were, and I'm not trying to make a point on this. I'm just pointing out, ironically, the way the feds and the Trump administration Trump administration did a good job of this, to my understanding. If I understand the situation adequately enough, basically what they did was deregulate the vaccine process, right? They made, I mean, this is the fastest we've got a vaccine out. This is the fastest we've got a vaccine out for something of this magnitude, which it being COVID, right? They did that by deregulating the protocols of the government. That's how they got such a great product out. You know, all these people are saying, vaccine's great, take it, everybody take it. They got that through lower regulation in the vaccine realm. And I'm not saying let's just get rid of these safety protocols. No, but I am saying, hey, maybe let's learn something from this. Maybe let's actually review the agencies that are regulating other stuff, like nuclear energy, for example. And then this is a little bit different, but also the Department of Education, right? Let's freaking do something there. Let's stop the spending. We can easily decrease the government spending in a huge way and subsequently decrease taxes if we could substantially reduce the Department of Education's budget. And people are like, no, Brandon, education is super important. Don't decrease the budget. What I tell you is, hey, I'll tell you two things. Throwing money at education is not going to make it better. If we've learned anything over the last, a couple of decades, throwing education at the schools, giving them money for Chromebooks, that doesn't help them. That doesn't help the education. That doesn't do anything. That doesn't do anything. What will do something is a reformation, or not even. I mean, I don't like calling it reformation, but a changing of the curriculum of the schools, not throwing more money and beating a dead horse with the budgets of the Department of Education. The education systems need, or changing curriculum, not more money. That's just one example, and this does tie back to the COVID thing, because COVID regulation, or the vaccine regulation to the vaccine production for COVID mitigation, right? I mean, that's what a vaccine does, mitigates the disease, or makes you immune, preferably. That process was expedited by deregulation, getting the spending decreasing of the government. Essentially, right? If you don't have to regulate it, you don't have to spend anything there, right? You don't have to do anything. You don't have to hire people and pay people and have positions to go effectuate whatever that is, whatever that regulation is. Department of Education, we could get rid of a ton of unnecessary people. And although that sucks for those people short term, it helps everybody in the long run and in the long term. And overall, the economy will benefit from it, and therefore people in the aggregate, not just rich people. That's what the common counterpoint is. Like, you just want to help the rich people. No, rising tide lifts all boats, my friends. An economic growth, not just stock market, right? Stock market is amazing. Okay, trust me, I know. I'm in okay, auspicious descent. Please check the auspicious descent channel for stock market. But the stock market is great, but the economy, but the actual GDP, the domestic GDP growth in the economy, that is crucial to people's well-beings. And it's if the economy is not doing well, if you're not making money, you don't eat. You don't get water. You don't get running water. You don't get electricity. You have to have money to buy stuff. And in an economy that's stagnant, good luck doing that compared to one that's doing well. And this is why it's worth it to have these people being cut, these government agencies, like in the Department of Education, some of them, like in the NRC. And in this case, in the COVID and the vaccine development, they just didn't even regulate that much. And then guess what happened? Not only were they able to get the product out faster and save money and not have a ton of people waste their time by regulating this shit, they were able to get the vaccine out in an unprecedented amount of time, expedited beyond belief. Oh, people need to. I think people should understand that. I think people should not. Don't do a fallacy composition, right? Just because you decrease regulation here and it worked out doesn't mean we should decrease regulation across the board. No, of course it doesn't mean we should not decrease regulation everywhere. Like construction is an example where you need some regulation. You need those construction workers will. If anyone is listening has worked in construction, you probably understand what I mean. Okay, and this video is not going to be on that, but my point is, you don't do a fallacy composition here, but it's still important to take to learn from this. All right, so going on, this shows how arbitrary some government regulations and spending can be, and how vital to an outcome, not every outcome, but to a lot of outcomes, government spending and size and regulation is. In all countries, and everything. Anywhere where there is a government and not just pure anarchy, which I don't think there are. I mean, there's some tribes, but they have some sort of hierarchy, some sort of governing leadership at least. But you get what I mean, right? Regardless, I don't know if there's any anarchies out there. I hope there's not any anarchies out there, but you get my point. So despite the government decreasing their spending and regulation on the vaccine department, still 2020 was horrible. As I said, GDP, federal spending absolutely got awful. And I guess it's not necessarily awful. I think it is, right, for reasons we're going to get into and reasons I've already ranted about. But the spending was very high in 2020 compared to other years. So we've established the government spending as a percentage of GDP, very, very high, which means there's high spending. Also, the vaccine, the irony there, some arbitrary stuff in the regulations, some stuff that they maybe should think about and people should think about, especially the parties should think, both parties, really, I mean, all parties should think about this. Think about what is necessary. What is necessary and what is the best? What is worth it to have? What is the government worth it, man? I mean, what government agencies are worth it? It's not about are they good? Do they do something for us? Therefore, we should keep them. No, it's about are they worth the money they are taking? That's what it's about. Because if we don't, because I mean, people think I'm just thinking in terms of getting rich and people making money. That money that those people are taking, that's negatively affecting all of us, because that would otherwise be in our pockets. The government's money that's funding that agency, whatever agency that's doing some good, and that I think not isn't worth it. In this case, in this example, that money that they're spending is our money, the people's money, or deficit spending, which we're not going to get into. Usually, it's our money. We would be effectuating our best interest better with our own money if that agency did not exist. Okay, and if it's not a necessary agency, like we've determined, like it's not worth it in this hypothetical example, let's get them the hell out of there. Let's kick them out. Let's eviscerate the agency. It's better for everybody. Yes, you're destroying jobs. Guess what? Every government job you destroy, that's another one in the private sector that's being created. Also, remember, the government job in the first place being created. Every job the government created is one that is destroyed in the private sector. Okay, and the competition thing. The competition is key. That what I just said, and competition. Those are the keys to understanding why the free market system and the capitalism has resulted in the most what's the word? Precipitously, the most sharp revolution in technology ever in history of mankind. In 300,000 years of Homo sapiens existence, 300,000 years that Homo sapiens have been around, if I remember correctly. And then human traces go back like 6 million years. But the largest and most quick and significant innovation in technology has been in the last few hundred years. Do you know why that is? You could argue it's because of the technology and where we were, but I would argue what's the thing we didn't have all those other thousands of years? We didn't have the free market system that has competition driving innovation and high quality products at the cheapest price to the consumers. We didn't have that. And then America came around and was the first big country to do it. And here we are complaining about everything and saying this is the worst country ever because we had slavery, although almost every other country has slavery, had slavery before, when we did before 1865, and yeah, there was bad stuff going on in the 1900s, and there's bad stuff that goes on today, right? There's racism in every country. It's still better today in terms of racism, in terms of equal rights. I mean, it's actually perfect in terms of equal rights. Literally everyone in the United States, literally all of us have equal rights. Literally, I mean, it's factual. It's factual. We all have equal rights. The amendments in the Bill of Rights ensure that for all of us. Constitution protects our rights. That's the beauty of America. That's one of the many beauties of America. And people are saying, no, let's get rid of this system. It sucks. It can be way better. And the splendid and horrifyingly hilarious irony is that their solution is more government, which is exactly what we fled in the formation of the country in 1776. And 1787, Constitutional Convention, even though the Articles of Confederation failed miserably because of too much fear of government, they still set such stringent limits, relatively, compared to today, that's damn sure, stringent regulations on the government's reach, scope, and power, and size. And today, nope, everybody Everybody is saying, nope, FDR wasn't even radical enough. We need more. Government, let's go. Bernie Sanders, I'm voting for him. We need checks, stimulus, more government agencies. Okay, it's madness. It's fucking madness. That's what it is. I that's what I construe it as, man. And it's. Let's just go on. Let's just tie this rant into the government and COVID here. Okay, so coronavirus was a perfect excuse for the U.S. and other larger countries. Also, by the way, I have in my other videos, I usually don't have this much writing here. I have a paper here that I recently did that I'm taking bits and pieces of it and reading it. So, anyways, coronavirus was a perfect excuse for the U.S. and other larger countries' government officials to start the deficit spending printers up. In America, right, in the U.S., and here in the beautiful states that are slowly slipping into way too much government, already have, in my opinion, in many cases, like the Department of Education, like the NRC. We're gonna go over more examples soon. I tell you what, that's probably gonna be next week's video. Also, okay, back to the point. In America, the three stimulus bills added up to $850 billion in relief, according to Roback, which is the author, which is the in-text citation that I have here. And I want to say it was more than 850 billion, but anyways, with the global stimuli, higher spending and for America and other countries compared to previous years, while taking into consideration inflation with GDP and increasing the reliance of government through providing free things such as vaccines and even more healthcare, as Medicaid, Medicare spending were up as well. The government around the world increased their scope during COVID-19, and it's, again, specifically America, but around the world as well. Okay, so we've established this with a global stimulus, with higher spending compared to other years, while taking into consideration GDP for America and several other countries. We proved that with the GDP 46.9% statistic in the start. And increasing the reliance of government through providing free things like the vaccines, like the healthcare expansions, like the Medicaid expansions. We have established that the government around the world increased their scope during COVID-19. We've done it. Pat yourselves on the back. All right, now next up, we're going to be now we're doing this. Now we're doing the important shit. Where we're talking about why the hell this matters. And if I had to say it in one sentence, it matters because government spending is more present and more prevalent in your lives than you think, than you're aware of. Government budgets, they play a key role in taxes, in taxation. You think about how many times you're taxed. Everywhere you walk, you're taxed. Everything you buy is taxed. Everything. Okay, they are vital. The government set tax rates. They're vital in morphing the economy into a tide that lifts all boats, like I always say, or an economy that is hindered by draconian taxation and time-consuming, arbitrary agencies that are regulating business and not worth it in the long run. Not worth it in the long or the short run, right? For that, hell, not even in the short run either. Let's go deeper, right? We've established the government spending was higher in COVID. Why does this matter? Well, we're on the taxes thing right now. Let's break into the premises on the tax on this point here. Okay, so more taxes mean less money for businesses to reinvest into themselves, into their own businesses. Thus, therefore, either one worse. Thus or therefore, less jobs for the poor because of that. Listen, all right, I'm not trying to be a friend of the billionaire, of Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk, although I guess everyone's a fan of Elon Musk, right? Okay? There's nothing wrong with being fans of them either, right? I'm just saying what most people think. Anyways, it's objectively true that these millionaires and billionaires, they do create jobs for the poor, for the people like us. I mean, poor. Compared to them, poor, right? Anyone that's remotely close to the middle class, and lower than that, right? The jobs that we have as opportunities, right? Minimum wage, okay, higher than that, all right, a couple $100,000 a year, whatever the hell it is, whatever it is. The jobs, unless you're an entrepreneur, right? I mean that's an exception, but by and large, in the aggregate, the jobs that we're getting and that we're doing and working for and getting paid for is provided by huge corporations and business. I mean, think about how many people Amazon employs. Okay, think about how many people Tesla employs. Walmart. These big ass businesses are doing more than you think for the for everybody overall. And by taxing her, and here's the point, right? It's like, Brandon, come on, get to the damn point, son. Here's the point. More taxes, and I said this earlier briefly, but now you can understand it and connect it to. More taxes mean less money for businesses to reinvest into themselves, my friends. That means Walmart, Amazon, eBay, McDonald's, okay, all these big businesses, whatever it is, whatever they are doing, if they're a big business that's making a lot of money, employs tens of thousands of people, or even thousands, or even hundreds, okay, more taxes for those businesses means less money for those businesses to not only pay their employers, but hire new employees. It's not employers, employees. Sorry. Okay, I'm sure you understand. I hope you understand at least. I hope it's making sense. Also, here's another side point. Okay, the government cannot effectuate the people's money better than they can. All right, here's why. There's two reasons why: competition and location. All right, and again, stay with me. The government cannot effectuate the people's best interest that they are taxing, right, and trying to effectuate their best interests. And in many cases, yes, provide for the general welfare of the people. Yes, the Constitution's, there has to be some government, there has to be some taxation. Yes. But when it comes to the best interests, and when it comes to draconian taxes, and when it comes to taxes that are funding stupid shit, like the NRC, like not all of the NRC, but a fair amount of it. It should not take 10 years to open up an thorium-based nuclear reactor plant or a next-generation uranium nuclear reactor-based plant. It's just not. It's not plausible. It's not feasible. It's arbitrary. It's an arbitrary agency that's not worth it. That's hindering the economy without people fucking realizing it. All right, now there's two reasons for the government failing and effectuating the people's best interest. All right. When we're talking about having agencies that are arbitrary, okay, not fully necessary like the ones enumerated in Article 1, Section 8, okay, competition and location. Fundamental key to understanding why capitalism and America's free markets have made the standard of living exponentially higher at a faster pace than at any other point in the human's history is competition. The highest quality product or service at the lowest price to the consumer. It's cultivated, and that happens specifically because otherwise, their competition would get the customer. That is why the highest quality product, that is why these guys right here exist. Okay, that is the only reason why they exist. Because if Apple didn't have competition, if government owned everything, why would the boss work hard? Why would the people at the top and the executives that are making a lot of the money be so vehement and fervent in their work and ardently, right, to put it mildly, ardently encourage their employees to work so hard and get so much, and their engineers to create such great technology, like the stuff, like the AirPods I have in my ears, right? Seriously, okay? Otherwise, their competition would get the customer and the profit, all right? And this is the key. This is the key to understanding a lot of stuff here. I'm gonna tie this in. You know what? This video might have to do. We might have to take this into this might have to be 2 videos because this is a very long this is a very long topic with many different subpoints that I'm going on. But the boss and executives and top people at any company are essentially compelled to do their best to effectuate that lowest priced and the best quality thing that they can produce. Otherwise, they would go out of business. And here, please understand this. Stay with me and listen to my annoying voice. Just a few more seconds, and you'll get the point. Right? So the competition is why the boss and the executives of any company work their best and work their ass off. In the government, there's no threat of going out of business. The government is going to be here perennially until the humans die, man. Or until we go into anarchy, until we have another constitutional convention and just say, screw it, fuck it all, let's just go into anarchy, right? Okay, that's not going to happen. I hope that never happens. But anyways, only scarce re-election for some higher-ups. That's the only thing they have. They have re-election, man. There's no one, and of course the janitor. I'm not trying to make the case that janitors of some private business are working their ass off because of competition. No, well, I mean, okay, some kind of, but not really. I'm saying that the boss, the executives, the entrepreneurs, the founders, the people that do a huge amount of work, they are driven by competition because their company will fail if they do not. In the government, there's none of that. There's nothing. There's none of that anywhere, man. The government agency, think of it this way. An agency's boss, their agency isn't going to get, like like Congress, for example. or the judicial branch, right? Supreme Court. Okay, the president, right? Well, the president. Okay, the re-election is a little bit of motivation, but still, by and large, the higher ups in government, they only have to get past re-election, and other than that, they have no competition. They're the only legal monopoly. There's no rival government. There's none of that. They don't have as much competition as the private sector does in the aggregate. Okay, this is why the government does not do such a great job at many things. For example, vaccine development. For example, technology. For example, innovation. Right? This is just as simple as it gets. All right. Also, location. It's just as key as understanding why the government is spending huge amounts of money. Why that huge amount of spending cannot be more efficient as compared to less in the aggregate. Not in every case. Not in every case. That's the key. Don't hear what I'm not saying, my friends. All right. And the point boils down to one sentence, right? I'm sure you'll appreciate this if you're listening through this whole thing. Okay, how are bureaucrats thousands of miles away going to spend my money better than I will? They're not going to. They're not going to. Okay, we need roads, we need police, we need some education, we need several things that the government can provide. But when we're talking about 46% of GDP, some of that is arbitrary. Okay, stimulus, no, we don't need this much stimulus. We don't need this many. We don't need. Okay, many of the NRC, okay, the NRC regulation, the Department of Education, a horrible throwing money at it. Okay, the foreign aid. There's a plethora of agencies that don't do shit. Okay, how about the one, what's it called? The Rural Electrification Agency, something like that. I forgot the name. There's a great article out there that talks about the 10 worst agencies in government that are still around, and one of them is from the Great Depression, the FDR era in the 1930s, and their aim was to help deal with the Great Depression. They're still around today, and that article came out like I think 5 or 10 years ago. But I mean, even that they survived that long, even assuming they got eradicated recently, which is doubtful, right? Knowing what the governments do, which is only add more of themselves and increase their wages. They never get rid of their friends. They never get rid of the people they see in the halls. Nearly never. Even Trump barely got rid of anything. And that's what it comes down to. How are those people, those bureaucrats, gonna better effectuate your best interests with your money? How do they know your best interests? They don't. And even if they did, your best interest is not going to be the same as everybody else's. And the government has 350 million people to look after, the U.S. government, or what's the population, something like that. Okay, over 300 million people's best interest to look after. How are they going to do that as a whole better than those individual people would? It's impossible. It's impossible. The government does have a very necessary and crucial role, but not a huge one. Not one as big as today's government scope is. Okay, and with that being said, next video we're going to be talking more about COVID, and all of this does relate to COVID, because remember, COVID, the government, as we proved earlier, the government's size only increased because of COVID, essentially as an excuse. They essentially used COVID as a justification for huge government increases, and some of it may have been necessary. Right? You can make the case that the vaccines saved a huge amount of lives that made it worth, and also there would be more lives saved if the government wasted a ton of money and also used a ton of money efficiently by the stimulus, by the vaccine. You can make that case. I'm not necessarily making the case against that, but I'm saying in the aggregate, we don't want to continue this 46% GDP spending, federal government spending. We don't want to do that. Okay, it's more specifics next video. With that being said, thank you so much. Feel free to check out Suspicious to Say on YouTube. I'll see y'all in the next one.